Call the meeting to order, please. Chief, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gary, would you lead us in prayer tonight?
Father, thank you for this day, for this time together. Thank you for your presence. We look for your guidance and wisdom in anything and everything that we accomplish here today. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Anita, roll call, please.
Counselor Johnson,
Here.
Counselor Locke,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Segola,
Here.
Counselor Foster is not present at this time, Mayor Becker,
Here.
a quorum is declared.
Okay, modifications to agenda.
Yes, there is a modification to the agenda. We would like to move K1, second reading of ordinance 908, to be right after the consent agenda approval.
Okay. I have a motion for that, correct?
Yes, please.
I move that we move K1 to right after the approval to consent agenda.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to move K1 ordinances to right after approval of consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Anita?
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Segola,
Aye.
Counselor Locke,
Aye.
Mayor Becker.
Aye.
Motion carries to modify the agenda, moving K1 to after the consent agenda.
Okay, approval of the consent agenda for minutes of regular meeting February 18th, 2021, and review and approval of accounts payable.
I move to approve the consent agenda and review of the accounts payable.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda from the minutes of regular meeting February 18th, 2021. Review and approval of accounts payable. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Locke,
Aye.
Counselor Foster,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Segola,
Aye.
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Becker.
Aye.
Motion carries to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we will go to K1. Second reading of ordinance 908, an ordinance approving the sale of city-owned property.
Mayor Becker, I'd like to state that I hereby certify that within the ordinance was the first introduction and read in full at a regular meeting of the Monte Vista City Council on February 18th, 2021. That said ordinance was first published in full and said in Monte Vista Journal on the 24th day of February 2021. We're asking for approval on the second reading.
I would move to approve the second reading of ordinance 908, an ordinance approving the sale of city-owned property.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of ordinance 908, an ordinance approving the sale of city-owned property. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Counselor Foster,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Segola,
Aye.
Counselor Locke,
Aye.
Mayor Becker.
Aye.
Motion carries to approve ordinance 908, the sale of Monte Vista City property of the Valley Publishing to Ron Douglas.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We'll have a favor in return. Thank you, Ron. Proclamations, communications, and appointments. This would be Mr. Vance.
Good evening, council. Let's bring to you tonight, I get the pleasure of welcoming a couple of new employees and introducing them to city council. So Chris and Mario, if you'd stand up here, please. So, we had a couple of vacancies in our streets department, and we were fortunate enough to get some really good hires coming in that have a wealth of experience and some really good enthusiasm. We have Mario Duran, who just started. He's the most recent hire. And then we also have Chris Dabney, who's been with us 2 months now? Yeah. 2 months. Yeah, and I think you're taking your first call this weekend, today. So they've been doing a ton of training. Both of them are really enthusiastic about the job. They've been really doing a good job for us. Lowell's very happy with their progress so far. Been doing a lot of equipment training. They actually just got off work, so they're still a little on the grubbies. So, but yeah, I'd just like to take this time to welcome them and introduce them to city council, and for you to recognize these faces, and when you see them on the street, say hi.
Nice to meet you guys. Welcome.
Welcome.
So, and if you guys want to say anything, you're more than welcome to.
I'm just glad to be here, working in Monte Vista. I like the city.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
We'll be expecting a 10-year
10
anniversary
years.
pretty soon.
Yeah.
If not more.
Instead of
Yeah.
5 you want 10.
So, and then,
You have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
so the second thing I had in front of council tonight, Tom Torres is celebrating 1 year anniversary with the city. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it, so just wanted to appreciate Tom to the public that he's done us a very good job. He also started in the streets department and then has moved with a vacancy over to our water and sewer department. So Tom brings a lot of experience, was mainly a heavy equipment operator and has moved over to the water and sewer side, so he's getting some of that, but he brings another equipment operator to the utility divisions, which is always good for us. So really appreciate him and want to congratulate him on his 1 year anniversary.
Thank you, Tom.
Citizen comments, special presentations, scheduled appearances. In order to be included on this portion of the agenda, you have to file appropriate paperwork with the city clerk no later than noon on Monday prior to the meeting. Military parents with a purpose. Corey and Kelly Avila. Take the podium, guys.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Corey Avila. My wife Kelly. About 2 years ago, we started an organization when our son entered the Army. We got a bunch of military parents together in the community, and what we do is we actually got the idea from Canyon City. My wife started an organization that we go around and we get donations from the community, local businesses, and we put together care packages and we send them to our local military kids who have recently joined a military branch. The big outlook was to involve the whole San Luis Valley. Last year, because of COVID-19, we had enough in our account that we were able to send out some Christmas cards with gift cards to our local military kids. The year before that, we were able to raise enough money to where we were able to send out 40 care packages around the world to local military kids that graduated from the San Luis Valley. the reason we are here this year is because we're taking another step in our organization to where we would like to invite the Monte Vista City Council, anybody who is interested. We've already got a hold of the police chief, the fire department, local first responders to, at 11 o'clock Saturday morning, this Saturday, we are doing our first send-off ceremony, which basically entails, we have a certain amount of speakers, we have an agenda. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes. We will meet at the Faith Hinckley Memorial Park Saturday at 11 a.m. and we will be doing our first send-off ceremony, which basically happens to be our daughter, Amanda. She has enlisted in the Army National Guard, the Colorado Army National Guard. She will be heading to Fort Sill for her basic training, and it is just basically a real simple ceremony that shows the recruit that the community in which they live in shows their support in what they do, especially during the times that we're in. Our son Tyler, when he joined the Army, his recruiter was out of Canyon City, and they actually did that in Canyon City. They invited us the day he was shipped out. We went to Canyon City. They had a ceremony in which the local fire department, city cops, and VFW, they all showed up and presented him with a little ceremony to show him that Canyon City was behind him, even though he did not live there. The purpose is it actually shows the recruit that the support they have going into the Army, but it's to the parents, it's kind of a helping hand, letting them know that the community is behind them. It's just showing appreciation to everybody that is involved, because it is not just the recruit that is going through this, it is the family that is involved also. I guess, and since we're up here, we do solely, we operate on donations. So if the city of Monte Vista would be able to donate anything that they could around October, November for the Christmas donations that we send out for care packages, anything would be appreciated. And we send like toothpaste, toothbrushes, hard candies, simple stuff that the military does not get from home. Because our son was in South Korea the first year, it's a little something from home. And like I said, we're only 2 years into it, so we'd like to, like I said, this is our first send-off ceremony. So this is something that we will do continuously. This is our first, but not our last.
And right now, we're just doing it for the Monte Vista kids. We wanna see how we can get it to take off first, and then, like, the send-offs will hopefully be able to do other kids in the valley, but right now it's just gonna be one.
I'm kind of familiar with your organization. I'm inspired by what you're doing. I did see your announcement in the paper, so I've got Saturday 11 on my calendar.
Yes,
Thank you.
So
That's what we're looking for, and that was the biggest reason we came here, was to invite everybody who wanted and could attend, short notice, 11 a.m.
Can I say something? This hits home, because I served in Iraq 2 tours, and this organization, you guys are well appreciated. Because everything you get over there it brings you closer to home. I don't care if it's toothpaste, anything. When you get it, you feel home when you open that package. So my wife and I will definitely support you guys. I want to
Thank
make
you.
sure your information and is much appreciated. Just brings me back.
And something else that we do is, when we do the care packages, we also send letters with them. The school, Bill Metz, they did a great job of donating, and we thought, you know, just a few things. There was huge boxes that I had to pick up the first year, and even letters, we got letters from the kids to send in the care packages, and that was awesome to be able to get that. Once the COVID is over, all this stuff's over, we do plan on having it at the Veteran Center to also get the veterans involved, and we have been talking with Pam, so she's already looking forward to doing that too, so
That's awesome.
that's just something that we wanna be able to do, so.
That's awesome.
We want to discuss donation. I hate to put it off till November, when we start running out of discretionary funds. Maybe for next meeting or something, it's a little bit short notice, but.
The only issue we have is, you know, the discretionary funds are usually for registered nonprofits, so we would have to work around that obstacle, but I think we could find a way to make it work.
Yeah, okay.
Well, maybe they could hook up with the Monte Vista Community Fund,
Mhm.
like so many others have.
Mhm.
Sure.
And like the monetary donations, they also go to, the packaging, the shipping of it too, so that's something else that we use that for as well.
Okay.
You guys typically take donations all year round, or do you send
Yeah,
it toward?
we're
Yeah.
gonna start, cause that's what we've run into like the year before was that they wanted to donate, but it was at the end of the year, so they didn't have the funds to start or to help, so that's why we figured we'd start earlier,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, it was our first year, we learned.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Is your son a police officer?
yeah, Michael. Yeah, so we got Michael and then Tyler, and he's actually stationed for Carson right now. And then Amanda, which is, like I said, we're doing the ceremony on Saturday, and she ships off the 16th of March to Fort Seal. They do a week of quarantine, and then they start basic the 22nd of March. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome. It says a lot about you as parents.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Monte Vista Wetland Trails Project.
Thank you.
Just getting this pulled up here. I'll just take a second to introduce myself. My name is Patrick Ortiz. I'm the operations director for a local nonprofit called Soundless Valley Great Outdoors. We started as a coalition in 2014 of state agencies, federal agencies, and local community governments coming together to talk about how to increase recreation opportunities for communities in the Soundless Valley, focusing on getting more kids outside, as well as trying to increase the economic vitality of outdoor recreation of our public lands that we're surrounded by here in the Soundless Valley. I grew up in Alamosa. I graduated from Alamosa High School in 2007, went to Adams State University and graduated with a degree in physical geography and earth science. I began then working with the National Park Service, doing trail construction at Saguaro National Park, Golden Gate National Recreation Area in San Francisco, and also City of Boulder Open Space and Mountain Parks most recently, before I moved back to the Valley in 2018. So I'll talk about this, but this is the concept map for the area that we're talking about. So SLV Go's mission is to provide residents and visitors throughout the San Luis Valley with accessible and inclusive outdoor recreation opportunities that connect communities, improve wellness, encourage stewardship, and contribute to the economic vitality of the region. Another program of SLV Go is the SLV Great Outdoors Action Team, or GOATS for short. It's a program that creates a professional trail crew, and we build trails in communities in the San Luis Valley, as well as conduct trail maintenance on BLM and Forest Service trails, utilizing Forest Service Resource Advisory Committee funds. This is through Secure Rural Schools, so it's contingent upon how much the forest sells in timber sales, and it comes back to each county in which the forest resides. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit. Some things we've worked on in the past, in Monte Vista specifically, or with Monte Vista organizations, are we partnered with the Chamber of Commerce to bring the Mountain Film on tour in 2019, and that was a great success. I think we had about 100 attendants there at the Valley 3 Theater, and we were the recipients of getting a portion of the ticket sales of that as a nonprofit. We also, Rain Brews had just opened, so we got a lot of people in there, had a silent auction with a lot of outdoor gear from local businesses, Christian Mountain Sports, Joyful Journeys, a local snowboard builder lives here too, donated a split board. We also led a walk for the 2020 Monte Vista Crane Festival in Alamosa. This was a new trail, the Toivo Malm Trail Network, and it connects South Alamosa neighborhoods to the Alamosa National Wildlife Refuge, and it actually provides access to open space and the Rio Grande for those neighborhoods for the very first time. First legal public access to the river. Some similar work that we have worked on here in the valley is the Pelican Loop, which is around Blanca Vista Park in Alamosa. It's about a mile, 1.3 miles long and 4 foot wide, and it's crusher fine built, so this provides wheelchairs accessible. It provides them the opportunity to experience the pond around there. There's also some fishing piers, and it provides other connections to the rest of the trails there. Another potential thing we might need to do for this Monte Vista Trail is some boardwalks and or culverts. So I just wanted to highlight this project that we did in October 2020. It was a 96-foot boardwalk that was 4 foot wide. We used gabion baskets, which are essentially just, almost like metal fencing cube baskets that you fill with potato rock or whatever kind of rock you have available, and it essentially provides the piers for an elevated boardwalk, because this area over here does flood, where you can see the boardwalk there, and it's also along one of the holes there of the disc golf course, so we wanted to divert traffic away from that fairway and try to limit people from getting hit with a disc. It's 200 total linear feet, and providing that on-ramp, if you get a chance, go check it out there in Alamosa. So here's the concept map, just to orient you all. This is Chico Camino, Big R, SLV Federal Bank, and this area here used to be used as pasture for grazing, but it's city property. So the goal is to utilize the Monte Vista Lateral 1 ditch, which people already walk on, already ride their bikes on, all the way to the city boundary. And then what we are going to build is essentially build up a trail, kind of create our own levee, if you will, to complete that loop, to provide a 1.5 mile complete trail with a short connector from the end of Chico Camino, which would, talking with Forrest, we could put a parking lot there because we'll have to stage our equipment and materials, but it could also be used as a public parking space for that. And, one of the big things with trails is that, these neighborhoods here, the property values will go up with a legitimized trail next to it. It also provides value-added tourism for visitors that come. They might stay a little bit longer and want to check out the other wildlife areas along the Rio Grande that CPW manages. So this really started with a meeting we had with a few people that here in the community. John Campanecci, he's a teacher. Tom Tichy, former principal of Monte Vista Middle School. Jenny Nering, and Forrest and Jaime with the Monte Vista Parks and Recreation, about kind of just this idea of how we could provide a trail for the community and look at other areas in Monte Vista where there's public land that can be activated with trails. So that's where it really started. Then we went to GOCO, which is Great Outdoors Colorado, and we successfully got a grant for resilient communities, and these funds are leftover lottery funds. So we were able to get 3 projects funded with that grant. The other 2 you saw, that the Pelican Loop was one of them. The Monte Vista one was one of them, and then we have more trail to build in Rito Seco Park outside of San Luis on the other side of the valley. So I've already contacted the ditch owner about future maintenance because he's going to need access in there to conduct maintenance on the ditch. And the goal is to provide an interpretive sign there and tell them why this happens, the history of the ditch, and why sometimes it'll be closed for a couple weeks out of the year, so that people will be like, hey, why is it closed? But you can still access the larger portions that aren't along the ditch road there. And like I mentioned earlier, working on staging road base for the parking lot there, and getting our equipment staged there at Chico Camino. I already touched on this a little bit, but the economic value of trails increases property values and provides another thing for people passing through, for tourists to check out if they're here for the Crane Fest, or going to check out the trails outside of Dunlore, or they're duck hunting here on our wildlife areas. Just another thing that can keep them longer and spend more money downtown. Another big piece, what drives our work is, there's multiple studies out there that show that kids are getting outside less because of more screen time. They're in school more, and they're on their screens when they're at home as well. So the SLV Generation Wild Coalition that we're a part of consists of 9 partners. Rio Grande Watershed Conservation Education Initiative, they're here in Monte Vista. The Rio Grande Farm Park in Alamosa. The SLV Rattlers mountain bike team, which is led by Brian Stevenson. He's a teacher here in Monte Vista, but it's a composite of any interested high school students that want to ride mountain bikes and race them. We also have the Boys and Girls Club of the San Luis Valley and Alamosa Parks and Recreation involved, as well as Creed Parks and Recreation and Alpine Achievers Initiative, which is out of Saguache. So we all work together to create programming all the way from elementary age all the way through college with the Adams State Adventure Program, and providing outdoor adventure camps during the summer for elementary, middle school, and high school ages. And also, I shared a handout that kind of just talks about some of the data of, like the last child in the woods, and trying to get our kids to not fall into this problem of nature deficit disorder, and actually encourage them to be out in green space and have it be a mode of health and wellness throughout the rest of their life. Another initiative that's kind of helping with that, with SLV Health and Valleywide and Alamosa Public Health that we've worked on, is the Park RX initiative, and utilizing Park RX America. It's an app where essentially providers could prescribe outdoor time to their patients as preventative medicine. This was really kind of stifled because of COVID. Priorities were shifting throughout the health sector in the valley. But we're seeking funding to have a full-time health and wellness coordinator to really lead ParkRx, not just in Alamosa, but throughout the clinics in the San Luis Valley. Just funding contingent. And this is our executive director, McDaniel, out along the Monte Vista lateral, I believe last summer. We were just checking it out. We're gonna have to make sure that this area does flood during spring runoff. So like I said, we wanna make it conducive to the ecology and the wetland environment by providing hydrology, allowing the water to move through culverts and or our raised beds, like with large cobbles, and then capping crusher fine on top as a levee, so to speak. So thank you for the opportunity to present to you all, and I'll take any questions.
Is the intended use for the trail both bike and pedestrian, or tell me a little bit about how you see it being used?
Yes, the intended use would be non-motorized, so people walking their dogs, people riding their bikes. That was the intended use.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How long did you say that trail was?
So the total length, I was adding the little spur from Chico Camino, would be around 1.5 miles. Yeah. And there's a wetland there that in the summer there's birds, there's frogs, and we're going to kind of come adjacent to it, provide that barrier, but still provide a wildlife viewing close to town.
You probably touched on this, but what's the time frame on this, the local one here?
Yeah, so sorry about that. Yeah, so it'll be June, July. I think July is what we're looking at. Once the water has kind of receded, then we can get in there. We have a mini excavator and a bobcat and a dump trailer to utilize. And I imagine hopefully we could have some in-kind support from City Public Works on some of the logistics and finding material and helping stage it, that so on and so forth there.
Yeah. Good.
And like I said, we have an 8-member crew, and they're all hired locally, had either lived in the valley before or came here to work in trails or outdoor recreation. And we're just trying to provide that opportunity to get them a foot in the door into the workforce, connecting with Forest Service, gaining skills. So we really try to provide a good paying jobs for our group of folks, our 8 crew members.
Sounds like something we need to promote. Do you have any involvement in that at all in terms of promoting where I think you did mention something about maps or whatever that might be available, or do you do any promotion with that at all?
Yeah, we do. We have a Facebook, San Luis Valley Great Outdoors. We have an Instagram. We have our website too, slvgo.com. I can get you all some business cards here as well. Our website outlines all of our projects that we're involved in. So happy to provide that more information.
Good.
That's good. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, we a lot of our communities are surrounded by so much private land that finding the public land and community champions that already go to a certain place, we want to try to legitimize it and make people want to take care of it once they get out there too. That's a big goal, is that stewardship and that first level sort of introduction to the outdoors, so that they do want to explore our nearly 2 million acres of public land around us, and because we know it's important for water, we know it's important for our ag community, and we know it's important as a community we come together to see these as assets and to take care of them together, regardless of where we reside in that, in our reasoning or our sector.
I'd like to get your card, talk to you more about that on a relatively impossible situation, but with the river running through town, sort of.
Right.
It's all privately held, and we need to investigate some possibilities there. And I think you would probably, that would kind of fit in with some of what you're doing, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're all about making connections in communities between public land, on either side of town, and that's where we try to, rely on supportive, local government and community champions. Like, we weren't just gonna come in here and say, hey, this is a great piece of property, let's build a trail on it. Community members here, community leaders reached out to us and wanted to see what the opportunities were. We try to find that radical center as a nonprofit because there are various stakeholders throughout the Soundless Valley. So we always know there's common ground to be found, and that's what we try to search for.
Good.
Good.
Cool. Any more questions, anybody?
All right, thank you all, and I'll get you my card as well if you want to reach out with any more questions.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds great. Thank you
Alright.
very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you all for having
Good.
me.
Appreciate it.
Wastewater master plan, water master plan, and roadway master plan. You guys got a big presentation.
Sorry?
You got a big presentation.
Yeah, so, thanks for having us. My name's Nick Marcotte, this is Mike Hager, we're with Element Engineering. And we could have a lot to talk about, we could take hours and hours, but we've tried to boil this down to 20 minutes and hit the highlights for you guys. That means we gotta focus on some things and kinda, not on other things, but, we did write the utility master plan for the city of Monte Vista, which is roadway, water, and wastewater. I've got all three of these documents here so you can kind of see just, what they look like, and then we've given you all an executive summary, if you will. So again, we really wanted to focus on what we thought would be of interest to you rather than, a 2-hour, 3-hour work session here. So we'll try to keep it to 20 minutes. Be respectful of your time. I do want to throw out that we'll be talking about big, scary numbers with these, some of these projects that we're recommending for various reasons, compliance, things like that. But we will talk about funding and how to get grants and how to get low interest loans and that kind of thing in this presentation. So with that, my colleague Mike here, we'll start with the roadway, and then we'll go to water, and then we'll talk wastewater. And Mike, I'll handle the clicker, and you go ahead. And we'll take any questions you guys have just on this presentation or on the master plan as a whole. So.
Right, with the roadway master plan, we actually walked or drove every road in Monte Vista. We did a complete evaluation of pretty much a block by block segment of the whole city. So what we found out, basically, with the help of Rob, getting some historical information as much as we could get, and then looking at what the city actually have. We have 28 miles of roadway, 80% paved, to still about 20% gravel. And like I talked about, we did a complete evaluation, sidewalks, everything, and then, so what we came up with at the end of the day was about 15% of the roadways are in good to fair condition. And some of them are, were at some point were completely redone. Some of them were overlaid not too long ago, so they're still in real good condition. You can tell they're not cracked that much. They got a good base under them. But 85% of the roadways, your curb and gutter, they're in pretty poor condition. And they're to the point where it's almost not worth putting a lot of money into maintenance with them, and I'll get into talking why that is here in a little bit. And then, like I said, this master plan has a block by block, so Rob is able to look at what block, if we wanna continue doing a block by block, what it's gonna cost. And of course, but the water's gonna have to go in first, new water lines, which we'll talk about in the master plan and stuff. You don't wanna put a new road in and then have to tear it up. So it's kind of a snowball effect. So, but when we look at the cost, when you start putting all these together, and then at the end of the day, we add up everything. The ones that, just for annual maintenance, to get caught up on annual maintenance, you're looking at about $2 million. The good roads, the 15% that are still in good shape that you can maintain and should be maintaining with various things, overlays or, you know, chip seals, things like that, crack seal. And I know Rob has a program where he tries to do as much patching and that type of stuff. And then you've got the poor condition, 85%, which we are recommending pretty much total replacement. Any of your maintenance stuff are not gonna last very long. If you put it on there 2 or 3 years and you'll be right back in the same condition, so.
And this cost estimate, the cost here, the approximate cost is listed 30 million. That's the road, that's the curb, that's the gutter, the sidewalk, the entire roadway section.
That's correct.
You know, in those areas that would, for example, if we looked at a block by block section, we said, okay, the curb on this block's okay, but the sidewalk's not, the roadway's not, et cetera. And then we just add all those together.
And it takes into consideration some small drainage problem areas too that is in that cost too to fix some of that. So go ahead. So here's some examples, and you know when you're evaluating roadways, you know you can't really focus on just driving down the roadway and looking, yeah, there's some cracks and etc. You really have to get out and really look at the roadway. And you know when people drive down roads, and I know Rob has seen the same thing. You drive down, well, it doesn't look too bad. Then when you actually get down and visualize and you start looking, it's like, oh, there's a lot of cracks on the road and that type of stuff, which Monte Vista is not unusual to. Many communities that paved their streets back in the 70s are all in the same boat, so it's not unusual, trust me. So, but you can see some of the cracking, and you know the master plan goes into a lot more detail over different cracks and what you should do and that type of stuff. So I encourage you to take a look at that when you get a chance. But you know this road, some of your downtown roads, they've been overlaid several times, and they're to the point where they stick up above the gutter pan, the overlays, they just continue to overlay. So now you got a lip going in the gutter, and a lot of the gutter's in bad condition, so water can get under and from the cracks and gets under, and it starts ruining the subgrade under your asphalt, and it'll penetrate clear to the middle of the road. So that's all, the curb and gutter is a very important part of the drainage to save your roads. And then here's an example. Here in Monte Vista Road, you can just see that overhead. These aren't real clear on here, but it's just cracked everywhere. And, there's maintenance and try to do things on it, but it's to the point now where a lot of your streets are, what do we do? There's not much you can do. And then here's just an example of some of the curb and gutter that's just eroded over time. Like I said, this isn't unusual. This is, we see this a lot, so.
Sorry.
So here's an example of a roadway in Monte Vista that when you went back on some Google Earth time and went back to like 2011, and you could see that they did some type of roadway improvement here. It appeared to be an overlay. We don't know for sure, but it looked like it was an overlay. So that was in 2011, and this isn't a real good illustration. Same road 3 years later. You can just see multiple cracks everywhere. So the cracks just work their way back through. So that's where you spend money on an overlay, and 3 years later, it's back to where it was. So unfortunately, that's where a lot of your roadways are, that Rob is struggling, trying to figure out what do we do here. And I know that the city spent money over the last few years. We designed a couple of roadway sections, paving some roads, done them, and at the end of those, we're going to continue to try to work on that and do another one this year. But yeah, so we went through different options in here, alternatives. Roadway only. We always say it's an option, but it's not a good option because you got to do the water lines and all the infrastructure. Get a hold of the gas company or all utility companies. Are you going to be doing anything on these roadways? Make sure everybody's scheduled to fix everything, including the city with their utilities, to make sure when we do put a new street in here, it's going to be good for a long time, and we're not going to be tearing it up. That's where I get into complete roadways with water lines. And then water line improvements with patch. That's an option that when you get into the funding, when you put in water lines, we'll talk about that in a minute, but there is an option to go through, you know, a grant program and loans through the health department or whatever. And you can fund, and they'll pay for grants and loans, will pay for the patching, but a lot of your roadways will not survive water line projects. By the time they're done with all the heavy equipment on some of these roads, the whole road's gonna be completely shot to where it's almost better just to go back to gravel. So putting a patch back over a water line on the majority of roadways is not a real good solution. So it's pretty much when you do a road and put a new improvements of the water lines and that, you might as well just replace the whole roadway. Time you put service lines across, you know, you'd have trenches everywhere and patches everywhere. So we've been working with Rob, and you know, you guys, you budgeted $140,000 this year. I think it's based on help from some of that 1% sales tax, and we're able to do a lot of projects. The ones we're doing now is 24-foot wide asphalt road with some base and new roads, which is great. But unfortunately, the $140,000, when we go in and do a complete block with curb and gutter, replace the curb and gutter and asphalt, it will not cover the cost of just the asphalt and the concrete work. It's just not enough money to do a complete whole block. So that's where, go ahead, Rob.
Real quick, just point out that what we're doing on the dirt roads there on the far south end of like Morse and we did Dunham and Davis the last 2 years. This year's Bronx. What Mike's talking about, the actual street from curb to curb on those streets that are formed are at a minimum usually 34 feet. So with what we're doing with that 140, we're not even encompassing most of our streets with what is actually asphalt. Okay, so that's one thing that, as Mike continues to talk, you guys need to really think about, is we're getting rid of dirt roads because that subdivision was promised paved roads many years ago. I don't have anything to do with it, but we're trying to give them paved roads so the people that are just driving through aren't generating dust and the homeowners are then dealing with the dust. But it doesn't actually complete what is typically what you see in a city street: sidewalk, curb gutter, pavement. And generally most pavements, and we are an exception in some of our streets, most pavement is 34 foot curb to curb. Okay?
Yeah, and I think you guys have some general streets that are even wider than that.
We have right away
40 some feet, and some are a lot larger. So, you know, just you're right, Rob, the asphalt cost just doubles pretty much. So,
So what you're saying is that what we're talking about here is basically what was done on Dunham. It's just
the 140. So the last 2 years we've invested $100,000 in paving.
Right.
Okay, and that's what we have. We have the same basic this year with the addition, which I haven't had in years prior, but Mike discussed doing maintenance, $2 million for maintenance projects. Maintenance projects on asphalt include crack sealing, the number one thing. Crack sealing, we're gonna talk next year about doing some chip seals and some small overlays, micro sealing. But for us, we don't have, right at the moment, a very good crack seal program. I wanna get that started because any asphalt structure, what kills an asphalt structure is moisture. So every crack that you see on a road allows moisture to get into those, under that base, and then you start seeing what's called alligator. It's just a small, you'll start seeing a whole bunch of little patches, you know, little patches of cracking, and then it starts to sink, and pretty soon you have a big pothole, okay? And that's just base failure. Every time you see a pothole, moisture's gotten into that base, and it's destroyed it, and it's collapsed. That's what a pothole is. So, I want to we have to. If we have any hope of saving our good streets, all 15% of them, we have to start sealing the water out.
So really quick, not that it makes a huge difference, but in 2021, the budget for the streets out of the 1 cent is $165,000. Out of the capital project fund, we have budgeted $100,000. So it's actually $265 in 2021 that we have budgeted for streets.
Every penny.
I know, it doesn't help, but.
So, one thing to note though is when, just so you guys are aware, when the downtown project was done, they did replace all the, it was smart, really smart to replace all the water lines before they went in and paved the cross section, redid the streets, redid the sidewalks and all that, so.
Yeah.
So there's
and
new
we
water
did the
line.
highway,
That
all
just
new water
goes back
line
to that
and
point
so-
about, let's not put down new streets and then right over the top of bad utility infrastructure. We'll talk about that.
So
I
we,
got a excuse me, just real quick, we were talking about, Rob mentioned, some of these streets that have been partially paved. Where does that stand in terms of this total rehab? Are we saving that little strip that runs down Dunham and
Are we saving
Morris?
it?
Yeah,
We're taking that away from being a maintenance aspect.
okay,
Cause up to this point, up until the 1% sales tax that was approved, and we started saving money in 2020, we haven't had a legitimate budget to even look at trying to replace block by block or even
right.
what's the recommended version. So what we've done is just trying to get something on the ground.
And those new streets are here. Those are right here, Davis, Dunham, and Braun.
they're part of that
15%.
The 15%, which
Yeah.
includes expanding that and including curbs and gutters, or are we just,
I
that's
don't-
not in this at all?
oh no.
Okay,
So, when we go back to that, we're estimating $30 million. If somebody would just drop $30 million, you guys would have the money to do it, obviously, but we looked at different funding. Unfortunately for roadways, there's not really any, grant programs for, like there is water and sewer, which we'll talk about. Like I talked earlier, that some grant programs, if you put water lines in, they'll patch it back, et cetera, but there's no real funding mechanism for them other than special districts, that type of stuff. So when we looked at different options, we've seen some cities that we've worked with do bond issues, different things like that. I know you guys are still paying back bond that was refinanced and not good news really. So, but we've seen creating a special district, even 4 or 5 special districts throughout a community, or just one large one, and see what the people want to do and vote it in. But one thing I can tell you is just from past experience and looking at the annual increase of construction on a $30 million project every year that is wasted not moving forward, on a $30 million project will cost you about $1 million. So, when you look at the increase of the cost of construction and that type of stuff, I'm full of good news, aren't I? So, that's the reality of it. Is I know we did cost estimates for a city in Denver, and they were doing a portion of their city, and it was $23 million. This is about 5 years ago, and we give them the same numbers, and at that time it was going to increase about $750,000 a year. They passed the bond issue, and 3 years later, oil prices shot up, and next thing you know, it ended up being about $1.2 million for each year they had to wait. So
with the roadways, what the city can consider is essentially the funding mechanism is special, some kind of improvement district or something like that, and is for further discussion.
yeah, and there's companies out there that actually will come in and take polls of the town and see if people are interested in that type of stuff, and then they handle that type of information. So
that kind of brings us to the water system. So just a brief overview of your water system. You have 5 municipal water wells. Each water well is disinfected per state requirements at each well. So you feed chlorine to disinfect. Those wells provide all the pressure into the system. So there's no booster pumps, as you guys know. There's no above grade storage tank. So those wells provide all of that. the pressure. 30 miles of finished water pipe. Anywhere from 4 to 12 inch asbestos cement, AC we call it, thin walled steel pipe, and a small portion is modern PVC. So that asbestos cement, steel, and some of the pipe is irrigation pipe is all what we would consider substandard pipe material. You know, if you're going to do a project, a water line project, you're replacing that pipe. Or in the case of asbestos cement, you don't pull it out of the ground. You can abandon it in place. You just build water line in the next corridor.
And most of the records indicate that most of your water lines were improved with the old irrigation line in like the 1950s. And then asbestos came around in the early 70s, and they put that in a lot of communities and stuff. And just because it says asbestos, it's not dangerous, but once it starts going, it's very expensive to have it fixed because you actually have to deal with it, So so much of your system is 70-some years old, and it wasn't great pipe when it was installed.
And then, undersized, we did a water model, a complete hydraulic water model on the computer of your water system to analyze fire flows, determine where pipe is undersized, so much of it is undersized. Water meters, we looked at water meter data and compared water produced versus water sold. The water meters are old, and typically when water meters get old, they read less sensitive, so they read less. They'll never read more, they're always going to read less. So that means you're producing more water, you're not gaining that revenue from the water that's going into the home as much as you would with a new meter. Hydrants, we looked at all the hydrants during our roadway walk. They're also older, and I discussed the water model. Our recommendations and cost, replace all non-PVC pipe with modern PVC, 900 PVC. Replace any pipe less than 8-inch diameter. There's a lot of fire hydrants that are around 4-inch diameter, 6-inch diameter pipe. That just doesn't work. It won't allow fire flow. So upsize the pipe to the standard pipe size. And replace hydrants and service lines in conjunction with the water main. So in these projects, we intertwine the roadway, wastewater, and water master plan to say, okay, if you replaced the water line and the sewer line, is that necessary in this area, to do the roadway as well? So we looked at all of that in the master plans. Summary of the cost. There's very detailed cost estimates in the master plans here. We're just throwing the numbers at you. 36 million is yearly projects. That's doing a project a year. I'll get to a big cost estimate table. That's just doing a small project, replacement project every year. And 27 million is a single project. It's about a 25% reduction. That's your savings and cost in engineering, contractor mobilization, all that kind of stuff of doing multiple projects year after year, doing one big project. We also included replacing water meters and an elevated water storage tank. Last but not least at all, just a 1 million gallon elevated storage tank is recommended to provide fire flow storage and water demand storage if you would have power outage or your wells were to go down, something like that. So that is recommended in the master plan. So looking at the project scope alternatives, completing one block each year. This is that first cost estimate that we talked about here, 36 million. Much more expensive over time, and the existing annual budget doesn't keep up, of the 100,000 doesn't keep up with that. Complete or multiple larger projects. When we talk about larger projects, those are easier with the grant and loan funding options we have through CDPHE, USDA, and DOLA. They're easier to package those bigger projects and get bigger bang for your buck with grants. It's just how the funding cycles work, how long it takes to fund these projects. So it does work better to do larger projects or one large project. And then we've mentioned this a few times. Roadway projects should always be considered in conjunction with water system improvements. This is really hard to read here on the overhead. So this is in your this table is in your executive summary. I'll just kind of briefly go through it, but you can break down different alternatives and how to improve different areas, kind of infinite, in an infinite manner almost. So we just chose some alternatives. we have the different projects here. For example, water line project, asphalt curb gutter and walk, storage tank. Let's see, and this is financing costs. So there are all these scenarios, 1/8 of total water line. If you were to replace 1/8 of the total water line, and that's the only project you did, you can come over and see the rates that would be necessary for that.
That's the rate increase on top of what you're already, your existing rate.
Thank you. Yeah, this table, it's a lot of information to show on a table, and you know, might need a ruler to make your way across it, but basically we are trying to present almost every, you know, different breakdowns of every alternative of the water system projects that you could do. From 1/8 replacement, including a storage tank, including curb gutter and walk, all the way to total water line replacement. So this line here would be total water line replacement, all the asphalt patch, the storage tank, and then you come over and that's your increased user rates. Those are two examples of that table. Just to give you, it gives you the whole gambit of range of what additional rates would be necessary. And we talk about grant funding through USDA and give various scenarios for those grant fundings to come up with these rates. So we could talk about these rates and the different scenarios for an hour and go through that. So I know I'm zipping through a bunch of information, but and we'd be happy to come back and, you know, visit about it even more. This is a no grant scenario in blue, I should mention, and this is with a grant.
That's a 40% USDA grant. Grants are never guaranteed, but you know, we've seen up to 60% USDA grants. We're always pretty conservative when we do these presentations because every year it seems like it changes. So,
And your existing rates we have on the bottom of the slide there, if you're curious what the existing rates are. Inside 28.
so when you look at this, you're definitely looking at a pretty sizable increase. Let's say you decided let's do a project, let's replace all the water lines, for example. This, you know, your existing rate, base rate $28, and what is it for the second one at the bottom?
30, I think it's 39.
Yeah, that's an increase. So you're looking at somewhere, you know, $80.
If that were to be the route that you would choose.
Yeah.
That's replacing all of the water lines, new storage tank, and all of the roadway surfaces over there. I mean, that's a big, big project.
Yeah.
And pushing right along, the wastewater system master plan. So this is where I want to focus your attention particularly here. So you guys probably are well aware of this, but you have two wastewater plants, Veterans and Henderson. The Henderson has been issued a notice of violation, and the Veterans is in violation. We're currently working with the state health department to move through that. They're all related, the violations are related to metals, effluent metals limits, that the current plants can't, the current facilities, neither of them can meet as they are. We did a study to look at derating in the master plan. We looked at and recalculated all the limits that the state gives you with a derating of the Henderson facility. It's not gonna, and the Veterans, it will not allow compliance, just simply derating. And what I mean by derating is every wastewater plant has a certain hydraulic limit. And if you can derate that plant officially through the state, and you can hopefully get more, or let's say less stringent limits by doing that. In this case, it won't reduce the stringent limits enough by derating.
And I'd like to mention too that that's part of the program that we were involved with since, what, 2015, 16?
That's why all the sewer work was done.
The
Was to
collection
reduce
system.
inflow and infiltration, and thereby less water making it to the plant, and then being able to bring the rating of the plant down. That was a requirement of the state health department in 2015-ish. Yeah. So the city was on the path to consolidate the two wastewater plants into one, going in the Wayback Machine here. And the state came back and said, no, do this first. So here we're back to consolidating the wastewater plants. The collection system, briefly talk about the collection system here, 120,000 linear feet of pipe. A lot of work, successful work, great work has been done on the collection system since 2015. 3 improvement projects totaling $2.4 million. A lot of grant money was put into those projects in low interest loans. through the state health department. There are some remaining sewer project work that needs to be done that's included in this cost and in this master plan. There's 2 lift stations where the sewer is too deep and needs to be pumped up. There's the Tierra del Sol and the Lariat Loop. The Lariat Loop is relatively new, 2016. Yep.
So 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, 16.
So both of those are in good condition. It's good.
See, good news.
Yeah, we're full of it. Full of good things. So these are big numbers, okay? These are big numbers, but we're working with the city on funding packages and USDA to get grants for this. So the collection system improvements approximately $1.1 million. To consolidate the Henderson and Veterans wastewater plants, so you're not operating. I kind of glossed over that. Why consolidate? You're not operating 2 wastewater plants, 2 discharge permits, 2 batteries of testing on each plant. The cost is 2 sets of operating costs, the electricity each plant. It's not necessary. Wastewater plants are not something you want to own. You don't want to own 2 of them. So we do recommend consolidating, particularly because of the wastewater treatment plant improvements that are needed to meet permit limits. If you're going to do that project that we'll talk about, you should consolidate your plants to 1, so you're not operating 2 of them. And that brings us to constructing the new activated sludge plant. We're looking at the property, the town-owned property to the south of the Henderson Lagoon system. We'll decommission the existing lagoons and the veterans municipal operations. The veterans, that's another question. What does the city do with veterans? A special district could be formed by another entity to make it an industrial plant. It could be sold. It could be mothballed, but it's not really gone into in this master plan. We just say, bring the municipal flows over to the new plant at the Henderson site. So we put together some funding scenarios for this. Some assumptions we made is a $1 million DOLA grant. That is an available grant for right now. It is, and this would be for a grant for construction, and then 40% of the remaining project costs for their USDA grant. Just like we talked, we think we could probably get more, but 40% is a good assumption. We're designing. We're actually going to construction on a plant for the Center Sanitation District where we're about 75% grant on $11 million project. So that was pretty successful grant funding. We have a summary of the project costs and discussion here of the financing. USDA funds at a 40-year long term. Their interest rates right now are about 2.5%. And then we look at the rates for this project with these grant funding scenarios. And you can see that the rates are residential in city, residential out of city, commercial in city, commercial out of city. These just add. We just assumed in this rate scenario, doesn't mean you have to do it. We just add the same amount of increase to each user status, in city, out of city, commercial. That could be different. You know, you could add less to in city, more to out of city, etc. But one way I want to be clear about how USDA funds projects, they look at other communities that have done similar projects, and they try to award a grant fund amount to that project that would allow rates in those 2 communities to be roughly equal. So that, in other words, they don't want to give community A 100% grant and the rates are $20 a month, and community B 100% loan and the rates are $100 a month. They want everybody to kind of be around the 50 with their funding scenario. That's how that 40% is generated. Is it 60? Is it 40? That's how they come to that.
When we look at all these, the water, the roadways, and the wastewater, they're all, they're all pretty much necessary, but the wastewater one is where
it is the most necessary. It is a must because of the compliance issues. And we have already moved forward with the funding of this option by submitting a preliminary engineering report to USDA.
which was a requirement by the state on the timing issues.
So that was submitted at the end of February. So the next steps in that will be to fill out a loan application or a funding application, And to complete all that, we're working with city personnel on that. Actually, I have a meeting scheduled next week to discuss it. And then USDA will come up with a funding offering, a funding package where they'll say, here's our offering. 50% grant, 50% loan. Yeah, that they'll generate what's called letter of conditions. So we're already moving on this to get the city into compliance. So again, I know we covered a whole bunch of stuff, and we probably went a lot longer than you may have wanted us to, even so. But we are very happy to answer questions. It's tough to consolidate this much information into a short time. So we've kind of.
One last thing I'd like to say too is this again is not just the Monte Vista. This is happening all over the state with different sized communities. We've got some communities with 300 people that their water rates are now $75 a month. Their sewer rates are $75 a month. They got,
It's just the
100 households or 50, 75 households to pay for a treatment plant.
It's essentially the tightening regulations that come from the EPA through the state health department and to you.
So we pretty much go into a town that's having issues, a small town, to let them know that we're just going to let you know right now, $75 a month for water and $75 for sewer is going to become the new norm. Unfortunately, that's the way we're seeing it everywhere. So it's tough. It's really hard on communities.
Have you guys seen any smaller communities just not be able to afford it?
We do have a lot of them that can't afford it, but they don't have a choice. The state, and I can tell you that the state will come in and start fining, and it's not, they will fine you.
Well, what you do is you apply to an entity like USDA, and you look at DOLA grants and things like that, and it tends to work out. Are the rates higher than what that community wants? Probably, in that case, that what you're talking about, probably are a little higher than what they want. But USDA will come up with the money. They will. Like in Center, that's a community that can't afford a lot of extra bills every month, right? So USDA came to the table with 75% grant, and they had $1 million grant out of $11 million project. Their loan amount is $2.5 million. So
it's helpful, but you're right. Even with
So their rates will be right at $60 a month.
So this might be a question for Rob or you guys, like EPA coming in or whoever coming in and saying, okay, you guys haven't met this, boom, we're gonna start fining you. Is that a daily fine?
It is a repeating fine. They can do it per each occurrence. So whether that's based on our testing, it's either monthly or quarterly, they can fine us at each one of those compliance schedules. A lot of the metals are monthly testing.
Yes.
And we're constantly and have been in non-compliance since January.
And they're not gonna just send you a bill in the mail and say, here's your fine. What they do is that comes after you've discussed a plan to move forward and get into compliance. They give what's called a compliance on consent order. And then they stop once you get a compliance on consent, without going way into the weeds, once you get a compliance on consent order, they hit a timeout on these items Rob's talking about, the items where there's compliance violations. They say, we're no longer gonna tally that against you. You're working on your plan. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. We've essentially demanded they do that, and we've brought
Right, but if I could interject here, just one thing, so working on that plan with them on wastewater means building a new wastewater treatment plant. So yes, the fines will stop if we get that consent order. Great. We don't know how much the fines are gonna be. There's some negotiating room there, but the reason you get that, you say, we are going down this pathway. We are applying for these funds. We have a master plan. This is what we're gonna do. I hate to quote from science fiction, but resistance with CDPHE is futile.
Yeah.
You cannot, their rules come from the EPA, right? And then they come to the state wants to get all their money, and CDPHE is like, you're gonna have to do this. Now, 7 years ago, when I came here, we were working on consolidating our plans. And honestly, I believe if they'd let us do that, we'd have been ahead of the game. We'd only have one plant to mess with right now. But we asked in a meeting, Rob remembers this kind of famously, I said, you guys just don't like lagoons, do you? Very loudly, and they're like, oh, we're not saying you can't have lagoons. That's exactly what they're saying with these new metal standards. There's no way our current system can deal with this. So that little number there with the $26 million, that's coming. And, you know, I didn't know the number was quite that before tonight, but it seems draft, but anyway, so.
And that's not just the plant, that's the plant, that's the lift station, and the
Right.
force main to bring wastewater from Veterans to Henderson, and that's the rest of the collection system improvements.
Right.
So, that's that whole
Makes it
thing.
feel that much better.
And we're not talking fines in a couple thousands, we're talking fines in hundreds of thousands.
That's what I figured.
So, and like Forrest said, this is what they say is an acceptable plan.
Right.
So you know, if we go back and look at all the roadway, water, and wastewater, all important, but most important.
This is a must. Do we need to do things with the water system? Absolutely. These guys have done a nice job with that, and with our roadway system. All those things are necessary. But this is not like an optional, we don't want to do it thing.
And our job is to get you as many grant dollars as humanly possible. That's our promise to you.
Yeah.
So I thank you for your time. I'm not cutting you off from questions. We're happy to answer, but we appreciate working with you guys. You guys have a great staff. We appreciate working with them, and we love working for the city of Monte Vista. So thank you for having us here. But we're happy to answer any questions you have. And please, if you have questions after you look at the executive summary, let Rob know and he'll give them to us.
Okay.
And council, just to, you guys are being hit with a ton
Yeah.
of
There's a lot here.
information right now.
Yeah.
If there are things that as we go through this, that you feel you want to have more of a specific work session and break it down into a smaller bite-sized bit, we're more than happy to do that.
Totally,
Nick and Mike will
absolutely.
definitely come
I mean,
up.
this is the full wastewater master plan. There's maps in here, how we get quantities, detailed cost estimates, all kinds of stuff.
And I have that digitally as well as hard copies, so if you want those, we can get those to you.
I would like a work session on that, just to make us all more familiar with what's going on. I mean, we see it, but we really don't see it.
Okay.
And I think that breaking it into the components, the first one you probably want to have as a work session is to talk about wastewater. So you can understand this happy mess that
We'll give you a lot of history.
right. And I think that would be really good in each one of these. So basically, we're asking you to adopt these master plans, but the actions within them are not written in stone. We're telling you, we have to do this wastewater thing, but we don't know exactly how, and the consultants here are working on funding scenarios where we can put that together. There's more flexibility in the water and the roadway master plans, and they're not as, we need to work on them, but they're not as imminent as this. We're in this, there's not really a choice. Essentially, there's not. But, so I think that would be the first work session probably, if y'all agree with that. And then we can work on the other ones and talk about the components. The voters really helped us with the 1 cent tax on our paving program, which is great. So that's kind of helped with the roadway program. We're not gonna ever be paving perfectly wide streets with sidewalk, curb, and gutter, because there's not enough money for that. And the cost of asphalt and concrete in this valley is high. And we're isolated. There's not like there's 20 companies that are gonna bid it to you. There's one each basically, or two, depending. But this is impending. The other things, the council has more opportunities, and you have opportunities with this, but to craft things, figure out how we wanna prioritize that with Rob and the consultants and lay things out. So
Yeah, these are supposed to be really living documents, if you will. It's trying to get all the information and existing and recommendation and recommended, and then you can triage it how you see fit for the water and for the roadway. And then you would take that on, you would move forward with that, and then maybe in 5 years or so, you do an update to your master plan, and so forth.
I would like that.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to come to a special session and get way into detail. I agree, start with the wastewater. I like talking about wastewater plants too.
That'd be a long work session. And just to let council know, the city has not had a master plan since 2008. And at that time, it was one plan that just encompassed a little bit of all of the infrastructure. And they talked a little bit about community development. I wanted and I instructed these guys to give us master plans very specific to each one of the pieces of our infrastructure, our roadways, our water system, and the sewer system. I sometimes come to council and I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news all the time, but these things are coming. And it's really easy to look at the road and say, yep, it's a little rough, but I can still drive on it. You don't really see what's underground. And the underground stuff is the expensive, and it's really, as you can see with the wastewater, it's extremely important. I mean, we as a city have been under a compliance order since 2015, since our last permit expired. Okay? And we have invested a ton of money to try to fix that, but with the new permit limits, a lagoon system at our temperatures and altitudes just won't do it. And I don't know if a lagoon system will even meet the criteria of metals on our river segment.
No, the problem, really the overarching problem with the lagoons, with the lagoon, your lagoon system, particularly the Henderson, it's huge. It's it's a very large municipal lagoon system. So even just to touch that to upgrade it, you're talking tens of millions of dollars. So are you going to go in and upgrade a lagoon system that is basically they're not eliminating saying you can't have a lagoon system, but they are, because they're saying you have to meet these limits. So do you go and sink that money into it, and then 10 years you're looking at building this? It's
Right.
that's where that's the crux of this decision here.
So this plan is also taking into consideration that if we had more development going, let's say over here behind Big R, they put it, I don't know.
Our plant right now, our lagoon system, I don't think we've actually got that far in a year. Have you decided hydraulic loading?
It's about 1.9 MGD, something like that.
So there is some.
Yeah, there's room for development. It's not, you gotta be careful because you don't wanna build too big of a plant. The biology doesn't like that. When you have too big of a plant, too little water going through it, but there is room for that. It's not gonna get built and then, we're at capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, Henderson now is rated 3.7.
They're, 3.1, something like that.
Yeah,
It's
3.1.
way over what you need.
Yeah, so and we were pushing before we started this collection system.
2.1.
2.1. So we were pushing, and we've reduced that by 1 million gallons a day in the project that we've done.
Oh, that
So we
ground.
have been successful in the work that we have been doing since 2015. It's just that the metal limit we can't get. We just cannot get them.
So when would be a good day for that work session?
Question. Well, counselors, we probably won't do our retreat in April because things are still like fuzzy on what you can do or where you can do it. So maybe, it's up to council's pleasure, but maybe that, we got a council meeting on the 15th of April. We could do the 13th, if that works for.
I'm sure, that's fine about it.
Of course, there's Skyline meeting that night.
Well, we'll just have to move this guy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
we can change that to a different day.
Right, I mean, that shouldn't be, at that point, it shouldn't be a real, we almost have that buttoned up.
What, you said April 15th for us?
You know, second Tuesdays are difficult for me, but don't let that stop you.
What about the first Tuesday, Counselor?
Unfortunately, I will be in the Grand Canyon that day.
Oh, outstanding.
Well, unfortunately. It's so unfortunate for you, Larry.
I know. Usually first Tuesday's fine, but
Well,
unfortunately, I'll be
The
How about the
20th?
20th?
I won't be here.
I don't have anything for you on my calendar, sir.
I will be at the conference.
It's not on my calendar.
I'll be there with you.
Okay.
Okay, everybody good with the 13th then?
I'm good with the 13th.
We can fill you in, Counselor Foster.
Exactly. Take copious notes for me.
April 13th,
That's
work
perfect
session.
for me. Can we record that?
Is that
Yes,
what,
I can record that for you.
Okay, thank you.
that work for you guys too?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you guys for your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys, and we'll stick around in case there are questions during the resolution.
So is that trail guy?
He's got good news.
About overflow.
It's like, wow, I'm glad we got that paper to look at. Thank you
Yeah.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody needs to build an outhouse in their backyard.
Well, you still gotta deal with the metal, but then you're on your own, man. All right, citizen comments. Becca, you're the only citizen in here right now.
I have my reports on Wednesday. No, you can read them in the all.
Okay. Anybody else? Citizen comments, please?
Since,
Kristen?
since you're bringing that up, do we have any news on Margo? I haven't heard anything from her.
I haven't heard anything. I called her today and left a voicemail, and she has returned it, but I haven't been able to
Nita's
listen
got
to it.
something for us.
Okay.
She's
Okay.
actually at home. Margot was released, was it yesterday? Yesterday or the day before, she was released and she is at home. She is staying with her daughter. If you would like that number, I do have it. She is accepting phone calls.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nita.
We hope you get better, Marco.
If you're watching this, Margo, we miss you.
She'll see it tomorrow
Right,
afternoon.
I'm sure she will.
I betcha, yeah. Okay. Looks like we're to resolutions. Who's presenting them? Rob?
I will. The good news is by adopting these resolutions tonight, it is not guaranteeing or making council fork out millions of dollars right at the moment.
Right at the moment.
But the nice thing about master plans, even though the numbers are really scary, it gives us a guide to go for a path forward. You know, it's the numbers are they're not what we want, but at the same token, they are what we need, and it gives us focus on where we need to go, and it gives everybody an idea how we can actually get there. Okay, so I think they're good. So I got 3 resolutions for you. The first one is Resolution 2021-3. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Monte Vista adopting the Monte Vista Wastewater System Master Plan. And whereas the City of Monte Vista applied for and received funding from the State of Colorado Department of Health, Water Quality Control Division, grant number FEGA 2020-000-10415 for the purpose of creating a comprehensive wastewater system master plan. And whereas the city recognizes the importance of the master plan in determining the future vision and to ensure regulatory compliance within the city's wastewater system for the health and safety of the city of Monte Vista, and whereas the city council believes that a strong infrastructure is critical to the sustainability of the community. And for the community to achieve the goal of a strong infrastructure, the city needs a comprehensive study that describes the short, mid, and long-term goals and development plans to meet future situational or sanitation needs and demands. Now therefore, let it be resolved by City Council of the City of Monte Vista that 1, the City Council believes that the City of Monte Vista wastewater system master plan as prepared by Element Engineering is a comprehensive study of the future needs, goals, and development objectives of the city's wastewater system. And 2, instructs staff to pursue the recommendations in said master plan. And 3, the Monte Vista City Council does hereby formally adopt the City of Monte Vista wastewater system master plan, done and signed this 4th day of March 2021. Any questions on it? Yes, Tom.
I move to approve resolution 2021-3 wastewater master plan.
One of them got it. Been moved and seconded to accept resolution number 2021-3. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Mayor Pro Tem Segola?
Aye.
Counselor Foster?
Aye.
Counselor Locke?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries to approve resolution 2021-3 wastewater master plan.
Okay, the next one is resolution number 2021-4, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Monte Vista, Colorado, adopting the Monte Vista Water System Master Plan. Whereas the City of Monte Vista applied for and received funding from the State of Colorado Department of Local Affairs, Energy and Mineral Impact Assistance Program, EIAF, grant number 9212 for the purpose of creating a comprehensive water system master plan. And whereas the city recognizes the importance of the master plan in determining the future vision and to ensure regulatory compliance within the city's water system, and the need to assess and address the city's water system needs for the health and safety of Monte Vista. And whereas the City Council believes that a strong infrastructure is critical to the sustainability of the community, and for the community to achieve the goal of a strong infrastructure, the city needs a comprehensive study that describes the short, mid, and long-term goals and development plans to meet the future water system needs and demands. And now therefore let it be resolved by the City Council of the City of Monte Vista that 1, the City Council believes that the City of Monte Vista Water System Master Plan as prepared by Element Engineering is a comprehensive study of the future needs, goals, and development objectives of the city's water system. And 2, instructs staff to pursue the recommendations in said master plan. And 3, the Monte Vista City Council does hereby formally adopt the City of Monte Vista Water System Master Plan, done and signed this 4th day of March 2021.
Move to approve resolution 2021-4 water system master plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2021-4. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Monte Vista's water system master plan. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Locke?
Aye.
Counselor Foster?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Segola?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries to approve resolution 2021-4 water master plan.
Okay, resolution number 2021-5. The resolution of the City Council of the City of Monte Vista adopting the Monte Vista Roadway Master Plan. Whereas the City of Monte Vista applied for and received funding from the State of Colorado Department of Local Affairs, Energy and Mineral Impact Assistance Program, grant number 9212, for the purpose of creating a comprehensive roadway master plan. And whereas the city recognizes the importance of a master plan in determining the future vision and to ensure the safety of the traveling public on the city's road system, and the need to assess and address the city roadway needs for the health and safety of the city of Monte Vista. And whereas the City Council believes that a strong infrastructure is critical to the sustainability of the community. And for the community to achieve a goal of a strong infrastructure, the city needs a comprehensive study that describes the short, mid, and long-term goals and development plans to meet future road system needs and demands. Now let it be therefore and resolved by the City Council of the City of Monte Vista that one, the City Council believes that the City of Monte Vista Roadway Master Plan as prepared by Element Engineering is a comprehensive study of the future needs, goals, and development objectives of the city's roadway system. And two, instruct staff to pursue the recommendations in said master plan. And three, the Monte Vista City Council does hereby formally adopt the City of Monte Vista Roadway Master Plan done and signed this 4th day of March 2021.
Okay, I move to approve resolution 2021-5 roadway master plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2021-5, Monte Vista Roadway Master Plan. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Segola,
Aye.
Counselor Locke,
Aye.
Counselor Foster,
Aye.
Mayor Becker.
Aye.
Motion carries to approve resolution 2021-5, the roadway master plan.
Sounds good. Thank you, Council. Just for your information, I plan on having, work with Nita, and we'll get these master plans uploaded to our website. So those documents will be for not only the public to view, but also for council if you want to view them. And then please feel free, they're large documents. As you read through them, if you have questions, or I'm sure questions will come up from community members, feel free to ask. We'll get them, I will make sure that Nick and Mike get on it, and they did a wealth. And each one of the resolutions included a grant. These were the gentlemen that got us the grants, okay?
Thank you.
So they are working very diligently to make sure that our out-of-pocket costs are as little as absolutely possible. So I do appreciate it, and thank you for everything you guys have done.
Yep, thank you guys.
Thank you guys. Contract agreement and leases, economic developer. Thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
Take care, guys. Thanks. Good evening, Mayor, councilors. So in your packet, you have a draft RFP for an economic developer. At the last council meeting, you requested that staff develop one. So our city clerk and I both reached out to our various listservs and got some RFPs from other people and kind of did some combinations, put it together, and nobody writes these things from scratch. So, it's really up to council's pleasure what you want to do with this particular draft. I mean, I think it's a pretty good one. I liked a lot of the elements of it that I got from and I talked to a couple of the gentlemen in this case that I got them from, but really up to you to discuss what you want to do with that. If you want to have if you like the draft, if you want to have a work session or move forward or whatever you want to do, that's really up for the council to discuss.
Based on what we just heard, I think we need to move on this. We need as much revenue as we can get at this point. We may even be a few years behind on doing this, but that's okay, we can get started now. It's gonna be an investment, of course, it's gonna be somebody on payroll. But is that investment, I believe, is worth hopefully avoiding $150 water sewer bills for each resident every month.
I would hope so.
So, granted, it's an expense, but I look at it more as an investment. That's my take on it.
And if I could make one comment to the council, whatever you decide to do, if you decide to issue the RFP, you're not bound to hire anybody.
Exactly.
You're gonna get proposals, just see what the numbers are, that's all for you all to discuss. You know, once again, it's kind of like the master plans. You know, we know the wastewater one, we're kind of locked in, the other ones have more flexibility. This is really just asking for proposals. So however you all want to proceed, I just want to point out that you're not obligating yourselves to do anything besides spend money to advertise. And generally what we do with these, the only local advertising costs be the newspaper, and then we put it out on various channels we have, like CML and CCCMA and all these other organizations that we belong to that usually have people like that looking. So
The thing that popped out at me in the draft is it looked like this person could spend, all day and all week in meetings and not get anything done. No, one of the things that I saw in it, he's laughing because he spends a lot of time in meetings.
yeah.
On page 1, when it's talking about the process as follows, bullet item 2, retain and enhance relationships with existing businesses. My opinion on the world is that's already being done by the chamber, and I think that would be a duplicity of effort, and I would probably take that out of an economic developer's job description.
I wouldn't disagree with you, Counselor. It's a standard description, but if we feel like it's being addressed locally, that's just something that they don't have to focus on, which hopefully focuses them more externally.
We may be, or I may be, out of order at this point. I think we need to have a motion before we have discussion. Is that not correct?
Probably true.
Okay.
Technically, yeah.
So I would move that we release the RFQ and get that moving.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the RFP for economic development services. Is there any more discussion?
I would move to amend the motion, that bullet item 2 on page 1, retain and enhance relationship with existing businesses be struck from the document.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to remove the retain and enhance relationships with existing businesses.
Well, you already had a motion on the floor, so just a suggestion, Counselor, you could offer that as a friendly amendment. If Counselor Locke would accept that, then
I thought I did amend it.
You did.
You moved to amend.
I moved to amend the motion.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that's right. You gotta, Martha has
well,
to.
you already have a motion on the
Yeah.
floor with a second, right?
Yeah.
So.
Right. So I can't amend the document because of the motion?
That's pretty standard.
You already have, when you have a motion and a second on the floor, then you can discuss the motion and the second, but you can't vote on another item consecutively. You can offer a friendly amendment, which Councilor Locke can say, yes, I agree that I should amend my motion to do that.
That's right.
Okay, well,
I didn't have my book, so I couldn't remember.
However
what
you
I
wanna
exactly
do it.
did, but that's right. So, yeah.
right now, the Chamber of Commerce has 1 full-time employee. 1. So I don't think amending this to put that entire task on our chamber right now is a really good idea. Now, as the town grows, then maybe at that point, the chamber could take that back over completely, but I really believe that it would be a help to our chamber to have this person helping them out, because they have 1 full-time employee. That's what their budget will allow for. And then we have a volunteer president and a volunteer vice president. So that's why I don't want to amend that at this point.
I'm still reading through it. there any more discussion on this?
On what?
On
The
You have a
original
motion on the floor and a
The original
second
motion,
that were
yes.
valid. So you're discussing whether or not to issue the RFQ or RFP.
RFP.
Without any changes.
Without the amendment, correct.
Mr. Mayor, I will actually speak against the motion. I think that we have people here seated up here who are more than willing to work on economic development. And I'm thinking that with people that who already know the community and already know what the needs of the community are, that anyone we would bring in would be months behind what we could do if we chose to do this ourselves.
I'd still like to make sure that we're in order. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with Councilor Foster, but we do have a motion, we do have a second,
So that it's open for discussion,
so that it's open for discussion.
right? And so
So we're
Councilor Foster has-
still okay,
Yeah,
all
there's
right.
still
Good.
discussion.
he has the
Okay,
opportunity
I
to
just wanna make sure
make
we're
his mind,
staying.
which he just did.
Okay.
I addressed it properly to the mayor. I said exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I'm questioning, making sure I'm straight on things, okay?
No
That's all.
problem.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Councilor Foster at we do have systems and people in place to specifically work towards economic development. I don't know that we need anybody else coming from typically the Front Range, Western Slope, or whatever, with any great ideas. There's enough of us here on this council that are familiar with this town and its needs, and we've got all the tools basically here to work to develop this town the way it needs to be. I really don't see the need for bringing somebody else in. It's just my opinion.
And I feel, I appreciate your confidence in all of this, but the bottom line is, we're not growing in the way that we should be, we're not growing at the rate that we should be. And so if we have all these people already in place to do this, why aren't they doing it? That's a rhetorical question. Because I think the bottom line is they aren't professional economic developers. They can help, and in the contract it does talk about the economic developer working with those agencies, and I think that's a good thing. So we're not discounting those agencies at all. But if that process was gonna work, it would have already worked. It hasn't. Time to try something else.
Yeah, I disagree with that. There are plans and ideas available within this council and within this community. If we adopt that as a specific effort, not just thinking, gee, do we need to hire somebody, or can the council do something about it, or can we get something generated right here out of our town? That's what we need to do first, before start thinking about plan B of bringing in somebody to try and learn our town, learn our system, learn our economic future and past. I really believe that we can, if we put our heads together and agree, work together towards getting something accomplished here in this town, I believe we can do it.
I'm kind of on the fence both ways, you know, because sometimes when you're in the box, it becomes formality and it's easy to miss things, you know, because you're so comfortable and used to the way it's governed. However, sometimes having a fresh set of eyes to help you find something that you've been looking for is essential to helping you find that thing. I'm not saying that's what we need. I'm just saying, like, I'm open for the thought of having somebody to come in and maybe give us some ideas. Other than what we already have. We might have some great ideas already. I'm not saying that we don't. But sometimes it just helps to have a fresh set of eyes come in and say, hey, look, somebody that's experienced in a certain field, a professional, you know, versus like just for example, okay, like in my profession, who can do my job in here? Anybody? Okay, I can get 100 people in here and they cannot do my job, okay, because I'm skilled and professional about what I do. I can get 2 people from what I do and can make leaps and bounds above 100 people that don't know what I'm doing, don't know what they're doing. You know, so like, I'm like I said, I'm on the fence. You know, like I totally agree with Gary that there's some great ideas here on the council, but I'm not opposed to having a fresh set of eyes and a fresh mind from somebody who's been experienced in doing something like that, just to see what they have to offer, if anything, you know?
I think you and Councilor Johnson both make good points. We do have ideas, all of us do. There's almost 4,200 ideas outside this room. This person, if hired, and this isn't deciding to hire someone, this is deciding to look for someone. If hired, would be working for the city, so we can bring our ideas to them. And like you said, if I need something done with my eyes, I may know what I need done with my eyes, and I may have an idea of how to do it, but you're the one that's gotta make it done, make it happen. I think that's where the economic developer asset comes in.
I think one way to look at this is to go outside our city limits and look to a smaller town next door, Del Norte, and a larger town on the other side, Alamosa, both of which have kind of outstripped us in terms of economic development and done it without bringing somebody else in.
Well,
Alamosa
excuse
has-
me, Alamosa has a
Alamosa has
full-time
an
economic development person.
Yeah, absolutely. That's somebody that was brought in to coordinate everything that the city is already doing. Maybe you're probably right that most of what has been developed in that town, however, especially here recently, was done before she was brought in. A lot of the Main Street development, a lot of, I've spoken with her about some of that, and yeah, it was all done and in place. I was trying to congratulate her. I said, no, I didn't have anything to do with that. It was just the city, the council mostly, and making decisions about some things that grants and whatever, and ideas that are unique to their town. Same thing with Del Norte. The people there understand that town. They understood the advantage of the Riverwalk and that kind of thing, and they didn't have to bring somebody in from Denver to tell them that. I just really believe if we concentrate on it and look at exactly what needs to be done, mostly in light of the Sky High project, we can come up with everything that needs to be done, and if we work together on it, I believe it can be accomplished. Anyhow, that's I look around at other towns around us, specifically, like I said, the two on either side of us, and I see that a lot of that has been done internally.
Well, we've had economic development in the area per se that has not really gone anywhere, and there were some citizens that had that going. So it didn't really get to where it needed to be. I don't deny that. I'm kind of like Victor. I don't deny that we don't have good ideas here. There's a lot of things that we all think that ought to be here. But do we have the contacts? Do we have the people we need to talk to? having a fresh set of eyes here that can really maybe initiate the growth. And we kinda had that going on, but it got shot down a lot prior to. So it's finding the right person to be able to do this. I think maybe we need to take a little more time to read through this and look at it. I'm not saying we need to hire somebody from New York or somewhere like that, but there's probably even somebody here local that could help us out with that. And maybe we could partner up with somebody to do it and not be all on us, all on Monte Vista, just having that one person. Because that lady you were talking to, she will never take credit for stuff that she's done. I've had conversations with her in regards to people, they know who to come in contact and tell them what they need, and then she's totally aware of what is available for that need. Where, yes, we all know the city, we know kind of what we have, but we don't know all of it.
I mean, we've talked about a truck stop, an RV park. We've talked about a whole lot of things. I don't know how to contact, I'm just gonna pull a name out of the air, the Flying J truck stop, and say, hey, you wanna come to Monte Vista and, build a truck stop? I don't think it's gonna fly. But someone who has experience with talking to people like that, and again, putting this out is not obligating us to hire anyone, but it's putting it out and so that we can get an idea of what the available pool of people may be. So I don't think there's anything wrong with going ahead and just letting it go out, and if we can find a local person, as Mayor Becker suggested, so much the better.
And then to whoever, if they decide to, respond to that, each person will have a track record,
Right.
I could guarantee just from having a conversation, in other words, taking the step and finding out exactly in detail some of what Del Norte went through with their recent developments, things that they've done, and the same thing with Alamosa. I guarantee that if somebody is just committed to go do that and bring that information together, we'd be in a situation where we're not just calling people, say, do you want to start a business here? It's a matter of getting some specific information and copying what they're doing. I don't have any problem with that. What's worked for you? What did you try that didn't work? This sounds pretty simple, but it's something we haven't concentrated on at all in the past. And we can assign people right off of the council just to get this information, bring it together, and make a presentation and see if it makes sense. Without having to start down this path again of bringing somebody in. We've all had experience with that, not the least of which was Castle Rock.
Castle Rock. Right.
Castle Rock.
Yes.
And that was a perfect example of it. I don't think that cost us anything. Maybe it did. I don't know.
Not much, but.
It just somebody to come in and give us a workshop and a seminar. Well, all they're doing is gathering information of what's worked and what hasn't worked in different areas, things. We've got a couple of communities right here that we could bring that information together and without having to drive very far at all to get that information. And yeah, you're right, Councilor Locke, that if this could have been done, why hasn't it been? Well, there hasn't been any concentration on it at all. I brought up several ideas that had to do with economic development that just for some reason went off into space. We just never pursued any of it or got a committee together to try and research it. I just think that the simple way is the best. And if that doesn't pan out, then let's go back to this thing and, okay, fine, we didn't learn anything from these other communities, there's nothing that we can do that makes sense. So, let's go back to this ordinance and hire somebody. I really think that's what we ought to do first.
Well, this is just a thought. We can reach out there and just see what kind of, like Victor said, reach out there and just see what we get. We don't have to hire anybody. We can reach out there and see what kind of stuff comes to the plate.
It's like throwing your worm out in the lake, you know?
And in the meantime, we can take Counselor Johnson's suggestion and see, see where that goes.
Because how long is it gonna take for that proposal to get sent out?
It's 30 days, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, minimum, put it out there. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be looking at responses for 60 days. Like
Right.
in hand to review,
And
however many, 'cause it's gonna be out there at least 30 days.
so, and part of like what I hear Councilor Johnson saying is maybe he's volunteering himself to do all this work. Because like,
Volunteer.
Absolutely.
No,
I
and-
don't-
and the
I
reason
don't
I'm
have
saying
any
that is
problem
because,
with that at all.
like, I am extremely busy, like, I work
I'm good at
full-time,
stealing
I have my
people's
kids. Like,
ideas.
it's hard for me to like go somewhere like during the daytime to go find out information about the city, you know? I'm like, oh, I honestly just don't have that time available for myself. You know, so like if you have somebody in mind, because you were saying like you've been suggesting right here on this council, I don't know what you're suggesting or who you're suggesting, but I like to hear that.
Well, yeah, I
So,
don't have any problem with that
because
at all.
we'll have at least the 60 days to come up with some information,
Sure.
you know?
And if in the meantime, someone else, Counselor Johnson or someone else can bring us actual businesses that want to come here and fit in somewhere and work with, Mr. Murrayburg to get the property to do it and everything that's involved. This is why I'm not an economic developer. Everything that's involved. If someone else can do that, we got 60 days before we even get to start looking at people.
Motion on the table, right?
Yep, we have a motion and a second to approve the RFP to go out.
It's been motion second.
Nita?
Counselor Johnson,
Nay?
Counselor Foster,
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Segola,
Aye.
Counselor Locke,
Aye.
Mayor Becker.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2
What a shock.
to send out the economic development.
We have nothing to lose, just to see what we got.
I know, I think
Hey,
we do.
Gary, we could lose from you being out there telling us you're gonna go do all this and you bring us back nothing.
Yeah, I'll bring you back something, I guarantee you that. Yeah,
Okay,
that's okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
We go home
Nope. Receive and approve and financial reports.
now. Oh,
Jenny.
we got all of this stuff to do.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you can see in the council packet, my report is pretty lengthy, so I am not going to go into detail to it because we've had a long night and I think everybody in this room's had a long week. So I'm going to touch on the highlights, ask if you have any questions, and then I'm going to bid you adieu. So before you is a unaudited summary of the 2020 financials and how we kind of expect to finish the year up. We've received all of our revenue in, we've expended everything. Basically all that's left to do is the year-end audit entries. Those are usually immaterial, so you're not gonna see a huge change in fund balances or revenues over expenditures or expenditures over revenues. The only funds that will affect in is the water and sewer funds, as we have to account for depreciation and a few other things that adjust those numbers a little bit. In your packet, I did do some estimates with the graphs of what those might look like. But again, I won't know that until we run the final audit entries. Highlight of the year obviously was our sales tax revenue for the city. It came in 18% higher for 2020 than it did in 2019, and it actually came in 54% higher than what we budgeted for. So, you know, this is a really good indicator that it's money strong as far as our economy goes. You know, there's money being spent in our town, our residents are spending money in our town, people are coming to our town and spending, so, you know, we're seeing growth, whether it's as fast as we want to see it or not, I don't know. Sometimes the thing with growth is you have to be careful of how fast you grow. So, you know, that's one side to take into consideration. The general fund balance grew 45% from 2019 to 2020, so that's exceptional. And as we're finding out with every discussion here, whether it's wastewater plants, roads, or economic developers, money talks. We can't do anything without money or connections to money. So, you know, it's really good to hear and report that for the first year in many years, all of our operating funds within the city are operating within best practices. And as you saw from Element Engineering, that's going to be key as far as how much we're going to have to finance for the upcoming capital projects that we have. Part of the financing key to that, or what could potentially be a part of that, is matching funds. So it's imperative that we maintain our current fund balances that we have. And we've done so through, you know, excellent budgeting strategies. We monitor our expenditures very closely throughout the year to make sure that we stay on budget. Our budget is designed to either grow the fund balance or hold the line. We are trying really hard, especially in our enterprise funds, to hold the line with our fund balances. Rob's doing a phenomenal job of keeping an eye on those expenditures. It's not always easy, and we ask a lot of him, so it's greatly appreciated. He does great with what we give him. I would like to request that council come to the 1 cent committee meeting that's scheduled for March 16th at 6 o'clock. This will be an overview of our 1 cent revenue fund. We have some specific challenges that we're going to be facing with that, and I think it's really important that council be here for that discussion, as we'll address those at that time, but it's going to be really important that you're here and have a heads up on what's going on with that fund. And not trying to scare you guys or anything, because it is actually a good problem to have. Our revenues came in higher than what we anticipated on the question that was on the ballot. So we're going to have to do some addressing of what to do with those extra funds and what we can and cannot do with those funds. So with that, is there any questions?
The only question I had on your report, airport fund balance, the airport fund was $8,024.60. Available cash balance was $11,184.
Right. So that fund is basically an in and an out fund. We started the year with a negative balance in there. It will all wash out in the end of this year. It's not designed. I mean, if you look at the general fund, if you look at all the other funds, for the most part, the fund balance never matches the cash balance, and that's because we operate on a modified accrual accounting instead of cash accounting. So
Okay.
with modified accrual, those numbers are never going to match because we're not cash accounting.
I just didn't understand what, that was the only one that the cash available was greater than the fund balance, so it confused me.
Right.
So, okay.
Right. So it goes back to when revenues are recognized and when expenditures are expended. So that's how modified accrual works.
Very fine, thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yep.
Thank you, Jenny. City manager report.
So good evening again. I will try to be brief. In my report, I said we'd have a work session on the 9th, which the reason we bumped that was actually in regards to Sky High. So the mayor is obviously involved in, we kind of have this group of, with both the Friends of Sky High and the contractors and the city, where we're working into the little tiny details of things, like where we're at in the money, can we add this, can we do this, kind of value engineering. So we're making some really good progress there. In the past, you know, we used to have these afternoon AOC meetings that were beautiful pieces of Zoom terror that not much got decided. So then we started having in-person meetings, and we really got really great communication, and obviously see the buildings coming along. So as far as Sky High goes, next week, you know, we already passed the ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign the lease purchase documents with SLB Fed, so that will happen next week, Tuesday, I think. And sorry, Wednesday?
The 10th.
The 10th, okay, so the 10th. Anyway, so that's coming along, things are really good. We're in this point where we're really trying to nail down things for contractors. So we needed to have one of those meetings on the 9th, so I apologize for moving that. That is our discussion of the annexation plan. So we can get that moving forward. You know, we try to do a citizens committee with that, and we will, you know, notice the public, it's a work session. But we kind of want to run through a standard one for you all to look at, think about, and maybe we can get that going, because we have talked about the city wants to potentially annex some land. Can't do that without an annexation plan. So Nita and I will be working on that together, and we'll give you something to chew on at that work session. A really great improvement to City Hall is we got our new generator installed. The old generator came with the building. It was fabulous. But a few years ago, we signed an agreement with Viero that let them put their little short tower out here, and they wanted to power off the generator. Well, the generator that we had pretty much died, and they just provided a brand new generator at no cost to the city, which will run the entire building in case of emergency. So pretty good trade-off.
Nice.
You know, Rob's crew helped get everything ready for that. The old generator could not be extracted from the generator house without being dismantled, which is something we're probably going to work on. But anyway, it's a monster. It's like, you know, huge. And then in your package, you also have the URGED report, the annual report. And actually, Councilor Johnson, if you're going to be talking to people about Del Norte, you might visit with Marty and Bonnie. You know, they've been there a lot longer than they've been involved as the consultants that work with URGED, and they are very well plugged into a lot of the economic development stuff that's happened there. So
It's pretty, they're already high on my list.
great. And they do have a lot of URGED has a bunch of data as well, which I think you can find useful for the city. So I think that's about it. You know, things are moving forward, and Sky High is pretty exciting. If you haven't driven by the building lately, you should. It's getting there. You know, hopefully next meeting, you know, so they're trying to work on having Stampede, and actually the URGED is going to try to have our annual meeting in the main event center right before Stampede. So hopefully we'll have a temporary certificate of occupancy by then, we can do it, but it'd be really fun. So that's all I've got tonight, unless you have any questions. Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Was that too quick?
It was great.
Mr. Trujillo?
Thank you.
That was fine.
Okay, Mayor, Council, about an hour report, but I'm gonna try and cut it down here.
Thank you.
We are starting to pick back up into city court, I guess I'll start there. Trying to work with our code enforcement officer with, you know, compliance issues, and kind of working to push people into community service with him. I mean, before it was kind of, you had some community service and here's 10 agencies you can work with. Well, we're trying to steer him with Manuel, and he can maybe get enough of a crew together to do some good. So we're trying to do that, trying to keep folks in compliance with issues, and as it gets warmer here, those issues will probably become a little bit more on the forefront. We're trying to, with the judge, because we've had some COVID issues and things like that, a lot of folks have not shown up, or they have, they're calling in, and so sometimes it's hard to get things done. So what we're trying to do is consolidate a little bit and have a lot more cases, and maybe cut the amount of time that we have court for now, until we get back into the swing of things, and then go back to the normal schedule. But that seems to be working out pretty good right now, and so I guess we'll kind of play that by ear and see how the crowd comes in, and how much tickets and stuff are issued, and then go back to our typical schedule. Working with urban renewal, some of this might be a little bit of old news, but with the wastewater project, I think we might need to sell a lot more property than we have been doing, but it's good. We did, of course, do the deal with Ron Douglas, and that's $25,000. That's not small potatoes. And all that kind of stuff takes a lot of work. I mean, we have a hearing, you gotta get ready for it, gotta look at the contract, because that was not one that I was on at the time. So, you know, you look at contracts, you get ready for the hearing, we got an ordinance to approve everything, then we gotta have a closing and get the money. So, I mean, all these kind of things, a lot of stuff that I seem to do is behind the scenes. I'll either work with Nita, Forrest, if things come up. Almost every week something comes up. What do we do? What happens? What should we do here? And so I try and get with them very timely and get some of these issues before they get out of hand. But we did also, with urban renewal, we've had a couple of sales on property that we ended up getting for taxes. We kind of implemented a policy back about a year ago to try and pick up some of these properties for taxes, which is kind of nice because some of the tax money comes back to us right away, and then we turn around and sell it. And we did sell at least one property for $9,500, and it was a nice deal for us. And that gets money back into urban renewal's hands as well, so they can do other things as we go. We worked with Forrest in getting a deed for the Three Guys Pub. That deal apparently isn't going to go, so we're going to have to get that property conveyed back over to urban renewal and get it back on the market in some fashion. And of course, we've had a few public hearings with variances with folks, and every time one of those comes in, you got to look at what they're trying to do, figure out if they're complying, and our staff here, you know, does an awful lot of that work, so that's awfully helpful. We're also trying to look at purchasing some properties, selling some, so again, we've got to look at the deeds, look at properties, try and figure out what we can do and how to do it, and how best to do that in an economic fashion that doesn't end up costing us a lot of money. Been reviewing over the last couple of months contracts with the airport folks, Rob's doing grants, so every time one of those come in, I got a sign off saying, looks good, let's do it. And the chief has been working on some projects to get some equipment and whatnot, so I got a letter for him saying whatever he's doing looks good, and I hope it is. I'm sure it will be. But anyway, and we anytime we do a USDA grant, they want me to sign off on it, do that. We did a lease with the golf course, and I try and look at, I look at every agreement that comes through, every lease that comes through, every resolution, to make sure, I guess, as best I can tell, we're trying to cover the city. Sky High project we're starting to do, and we have special counsel that is working on that as well, but Forrest will send me the leases, the site leases, the financing agreements. I mean, these are complicated documents, 25, 30 pages, and theoretically you would say, well, why do I need to look at those? Well, at some point they're gonna want me to sign off on everything saying whatever we're doing looks good, and Mike Trujillo, put your name on the dotted line saying everything we're doing is good. Awful lot of responsibility, so I feel like I at least have to look at these documents and make sure they say what they're supposed to say. Title policies, I mean, all these things that are getting ready for Sky High is a lot of stuff, and I'd rather not look at them, but I just feel like at the end they've got a document that says, this looks good, Mike Trujillo signed this, and the city has authority to do everything we're supposed to be doing here. And there's a lot of money that's at stake and a lot of responsibility here for the city, and I just think we gotta do that. And of course we've had some executive executive sessions, some issues that council's been in some disputes about, and every time that happens I have to take a look at stuff, try and figure out, make sure Sursa's okay with things we're doing, and try and do the best we can on those issues. And had an issue with the police where the chief was subpoenaed to provide personnel files of one of our policemen, and these are pretty normal things. Anytime somebody gets charged with a crime, or if there's a civil case that's pending, they'll want to drag our policemen in, and then the first thing they want is their personnel file to see what dirt there might be, I guess. So we got one of our officers subpoenaed, or the personnel file, so I had to work with our HR guy along with the chief, and they just want everything, and these personnel files are, in this case, was probably a couple inches thick of stuff. And these develop over years where you get a lot of information, you get reports, sometimes you get, investigations going, but anyway, I filed a motion to quash that subpoena, and it was granted by the district court. Anytime you have a personnel file that's subpoenaed, it's all confidential information, and rather than just throwing everything in there and just saying, here it is, we want to go before the district court, and there's a procedure that allows us to do that and require the district court to look at everything and make sure that what they're turning loose is proper. And so, anyway, we filed a motion to quash that subpoena. The judge granted it, made the attorney do a bunch of other stuff before she's gonna turn loose information. And that just sort of helps protect us, the personnel file, our HR department, the chief, and it sometimes I think sets a precedent where, if people just think they can get this stuff without a hassle, then they just do it, and then we sometimes get on the line, and maybe we end up having some responsibility. So I think this might set a little bit of precedent that you're just not going to get anything you want from Monte Vista. We're going to at least make sure that what is going out is proper, and so that went very well, and I think we're in pretty good shape there. So anyway, I think that's basically all I have at this point, unless anybody has any questions. Some stuff sort of gets to be a little bit confidential in a way to where you don't maybe always want things out in the public. So a lot of what I do seems to be a little bit under the current at times, but certainly we're doing our best to keep the city out of harm's way. So.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Just a quick question, I'm not sure if it would be for you, but the diversion program, how's that going?
The what?
The diversion program?
It's going good. We still continue to do it. It's really taken off. I mean, almost every city court is now trying to get in on it, and because it's really been very successful, I think, and the DA's office is going to go a lot more diversion than they have been doing in the past. And so their philosophy at this point is, especially with young people, is rather than get a record on them right off the bat, let's try and help them, get some rehab or get some counseling or get some things done. And if they complete that program, then the case gets dismissed. And so they're going heavy duty diversion, no doubt. And so we're probably a little bit ahead of the curve, and they're probably trying to catch up with us maybe a little bit. So.
I was just asking because my son was part of that diversion program. And
how'd that work?
He went through it and got good, and
Great.
hopefully we're good.
Yeah, good. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. You're in the hot seat, girl.
I have a very short update. Okay, so good evening, guys. I just want to give you a quick update on what's going on with recreation. As of February 1st, Forrest gave us the okay to open boys basketball. We're only playing in-house, but at least we're back out there. So we'll finish up with boys next week, and then we'll jump into girls basketball. Our plan and our hope is to get back on track, starting with youth soccer season, which will happen in April, and then in your packets is our sports schedule for the rest of the year. We're hoping we can just jump back in full swing, obviously following whatever rules we have to, masks and all that stuff. And then next week we're actually making up our camp that we had scheduled originally before we got shut down. So we're finally able to make that up. We weren't able to do it here though, so we have to have it in Sargent at their middle school, just because it interfered with stuff Monty had going on here. And that's really all I have. We're trying to work better on communicating with the public, so we're trying, we're still updating our Facebook page, but we're trying a new thing. We have an app now, so it's called Hasia, and you can log in and use our code, and then you'll get straight updates to your phone, like when registration is open, when it's closed, when we have to cancel practice or change. And it's really cool because not a lot of people have Facebook or check our Facebook page, so like this will go directly to their phones. And that's all I have. If you guys have any questions about Rick.
What's the name of that again?
Hasia.
How do you spell it?
Heja. And then we have a special code. It's on your packet too, I think it should be.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
In the
Is there?
bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you just get on there, like I think a lot of other teams use it, but if you use our code.
Letter.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Cool. Thank
Go
you guys.
forth. Get them kids outside.
I'm working on it. Thank you.
Christian. It's the it guy.
I'm starting to think I might just be lazy. This is such a long walk.
I thought you were gonna say they all float.
And down here we don't float. Anywho, I'm gonna try to keep this short. We do have quite a lot split up across the past couple months because while I haven't been up here in a while, it's actually been very nice. I do not like giving reports, but we have done quite a few things. I mean, to start off, nobody likes the guy who records everything you say. That being said, now we're doing that again. These do work now, so be careful. But at the same time, I finished up and got everything put into the rack and wired back up today. So
we're still in testing phases. I'm actually kind of hoping things are going well at the moment. Other things we've done, we have completely rebuilt our data center from the ground up, like physically moving everything over into the new server rack. We also rebuilt our virtualization platform, moved all of our current servers like our Cassell server over, and we also integrated a new server and replaced one of the old ones. This was donated from Alamosa, and it's not something that happens very often. It's not cheap whatsoever. We got this thing from Alamosa for free. It's generally around $8,000. That being said, it really does show why it costs that much. I mean, this thing can handle everything our other 3 servers that it replaced were doing beforehand. And it's just, as we move forward, we've got a lot more to do. When I first came here, there was a lot of wiring here and there. There was a lot of things set up in ways that I personally don't like, in ways that aren't efficient. So as we move forward, we're just slowly replacing it all, improving everything. That being said, it all takes time, and at this current moment, especially with some things going on in IT with one of my coworkers being out due to medical reasons, it's too much stuff, not enough time. But other than that, if you guys have any questions, now's a good time. I know there's a lot of little things I don't report. We are working on making our reports a lot more in-depth. We're starting to include our tickets throughout the month. And we're also improving the amount of tickets that we put in. There's a lot of things that we do that don't go recorded, and we're slowly changing.
So in your spare time that you have, you said, I have a challenge for you.
Sure.
It would be nice to have, using something like Google Maps or Google Earth, where we can look at zoning using that medium. Right now, we've got a map that sits in Nita's office, and that's great, except at 1 in the morning.
Right, so Counselor, can I address that?
Yeah.
So our fine engineering friends that were here tonight, they owe me a map right now that is digital. So we're actually working on that because it drives us crazy too. At 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Right, either Nita's office or mine, and those are the only maps, except for the really cruddy ones we have from our comp plans. So yes, we will have a new digital map here shortly, and then we can have that on our website. It'll be linked up, and that way you can look at the zoning and all that other good stuff. We anticipate actually having at least a draft of that for our annexation plan meeting, so we are working on that.
See, look at that. You're already done, man. You rock.
And we actually didn't have any part of that, so she handles most of our website stuff, if not all by this point. So anything that's up there, anything that looks good, anything that's written well, that's all her, not me. So she's the one who is should be thanked for all that and appreciated.
Well, we appreciate you guys in the background. Believe
Well,
me,
it's
I
always
really
appreciated.
The app is always running in the background.
We're not the ones you guys usually see a whole lot. That being said, if technology work, I wouldn't be here right now. I know I say that a lot, but every single day it only proves itself more and more true.
Well, you do a great job, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
And I enjoy your reports, by the way.
Yeah.
So initially I was going to try to make this report under a minute, but then Kim went 3 minutes instead of 2, so it didn't work out. But that being said, if you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Christian.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you very much, man.
Thanks, Chris.
Council committee, city commission, council reports. I'm gonna go first, sorry. We have a thank you from, this from Monte Vista. To our friends of the city of Monte Vista, thank you so much for your generous donation to After Prom. Looks like it will indeed happen on April 17th. Thanks again, and God bless. John Royinski? Sorry about that. I apologize for not saying that right. And that's After Prom president, so there you go.
That's sweet.
Very good.
Okay, Victor.
I really don't have anything except for look in the sky, there's a bunch of cranes flying over. Call your friends and your family, tell them, hey, the cranes are here, come spend some money in Monte Vista. So keep an eye out for your neighbors. It's starting to get warmer out there. You'll probably see me out there walking around again, calling the cops. I called the cops today because I was walking, I found seen some syringes out on the road. I was like, oh man, and I walked that way for lunch, and then when I was walking back, I was like, oh, really? That fast? You know what I mean? So, but thank you guys for responding so quickly, man. The kids are out there walking home on that block all the time, so just keep an eye out.
Mr. Johnson?
Not much. I'd like to re-emphasize the announcement that was made here by Avila's regarding Saturday. I think a good turnout out there would be a real strong statement.
Saturday, 11.
The community, 11 o'clock, and it's for a extremely worthy cause, not the least of which is just supporting what those two are doing. I heard a little bit about their idea and their project, it was a year ago or something, and I had, oh gee, let's do what we can with that. We didn't get much press, but they're still after it and doing a great job, so I was pretty impressed with that. An economic development issue that I brought up, this is the only other thing, with the president of the school board, something that's been around for a while and we just have never gotten around to do anything about it. So I'm just going to throw it out for some food for thought, and maybe it'll come up again officially, but something pretty simple is some annually updatable billboards, not anything electronic or anything, but just, billboards on the entrance into town, probably from all three directions, I'm not sure, but acknowledging our school board and accomplishments within the city and athletics and academics and that kind of thing. It's one of the best greetings that somebody that's just possibly thinking about moving into town or bringing a business in or whatever, if they can, we've got some of that out here on the other end of town. I think it was updated a decade ago or something, but and it was on just about wrestling, maybe a little about band. Just a simple the simple full-size billboard, updated annually. The entire project would cost about $200 a year to redo the entire billboard every year and keep it up to date. Just food for thought.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Received a phone call from a citizen that American Diesel is dumping trash again. Meant to send you an email about that earlier and I forgot to do that. Second Tuesday community soup night will be coming up the following Tuesday, and since we do not have a work session, I hope that all of you will come by and enjoy some homemade potato soup that we will do for the community for free. That's at First Christian Church from 5 to 7.
That's for anybody.
That's for anybody. Come by, it's
not
free.
If you're starving.
Yeah.
It's not the soup kitchen.
If you eat, you're welcome to come by.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, it's for anybody.
Especially if it's potato soup.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Councilor Locke?
I want to remind you that the virtual Crane Fest begins March 12th. You can find it online. I don't have the URL right in my head right now. Shouldn't be too hard to find. In that, I think it runs from the 12th to the 17th. In that is a video that's been produced. You can find the link on the page. The video was too long to include into the Crane Fest, so they have made a different place for it to be. But they do play excerpts from it and then say, go here to get the rest of it. But it's full of really good pictures of last year's Swoop of the Crane, a lot of the cranes that have been turned in so far, a lot of the actual real flying around squawking cranes, lots of interviews with local people about the impact, both with our guests that are coming through, our locals, economic impact. It's got a lot of information in there. It not only is it interesting and fun to watch, but there's a lot of good information in there. So swoop, the cranes begin to swoop next week. I think, aren't they going on Monday? Don't they start Monday?
Start hanging on Monday.
We start hanging on Monday. So I'm gonna be downtown Monday morning with camera and a biscuit and watching those cranes go up, because I did that last year as they were putting them up, and it was a lot of fun. So if you got time, go down there and walk around the sidewalk, thank our Public Works employees for doing it. It's usually cold. It was cold last year. Maybe it won't be cold this year, I'm hoping. So the refuge, the traffic is up really high. So we do have a lot more guests in town right now. Some businesses are reporting higher foot traffic and higher sales. So that's always a good plus. And then finally, we have the St. Patrick's Day Parade that y'all know I've been working on, the Optimistics have been working on. Ken is finally back. He's not walking real well, but he can talk. Goodness gracious, can he talk? So I have put a lot up on him. I have said, this is yours, you can do this, and he has reminded me that he's in recovery, and I have reminded him that, you know, I am Nurse Ratchet and he's going to work. Because I've been covering this while he's been gone. But we have several floats, probably 12, 15 or more floats, entries. I'm not sure exactly what the right terminology is, but people either walking, riding, or driving through will be in this parade. We have gotten the PA system donated to us. We have the judges in place. It's going to be a lot of fun. Lineup is from 4:45 to 5. That gives the judges time to look at the floats, make their decisions, tally their votes, however they tally their stuff, and come up with the first, second, and third place winner. We had 3 local businesses very generously donate the first, second, and third prize, so that did not cost the Optimistics anything. There will be hats and tiaras. Some of you have some already. Those will be at Polished Bean. They'll be at Payable Wolf Designs. Probably Rain Brews. I'm going to try to get those delivered around tomorrow. And the Optimistics are asking for a donation, you know, and have a hat. Take a hat, leave a donation, and that also did not come out. That was also donated. It did not have to come out of the Optimistics budget whatsoever. So they're pretty good at getting people to donate to them. So, and I think that's because people are starting to see what they're wanting to do, what they're trying to get done. So anyway, the parade actually starts at 5:30. There will be Rain Brews, I believe, is going to be putting some Irish food options, traditional Irish food options on their menu for that night. Valley Theater will be open for concessions. Some of the shops are staying open late that night to accommodate the parade. So it's going to be a really good time. It's going to highlight downtown. It's going to highlight some of the businesses, and maybe, fingers crossed, maybe the lights will be installed by then. So we'll get to see. I can't promise that one because that's got a lot of moving parts to it that I don't have any control over. But I'm pushing for it. So hopefully Adams Street will be lit up by that time.
Good.
That's it, I'm done. I'm sorry, I should have started that, but I'll try to keep this short.
One quick thing on the swoop of the cranes. Anybody that's here in Monty watching tomorrow, there are some amazing paintings. Wow, that's all I can say. Holy cow. We hauled one in from our group, and what I seen was beautiful. So, last words, Monty strong.
Monty strong.
Recess to March 18th.
18th.